What's up, fellas? What's up, families? Hey, listen, we got to get to it. This is draft season, and Cigar Shaun King is everywhere. I seen him on the internet. He on every thumbnail right now. He moving and shaking. We had to get him back in the barbershop. We needed to talk about this draft. How you doing, my guy?
Hey, man, blessed and highly favored. No complaints whatsoever.
Hey, we ready to go. Listen, this is draft season. I know you are big into the draft, not only just the quarterbacks, but everything. And so when I started looking at this for the Cleveland Browns, I had to get to the folks and say, listen, all right, what's the difference? Because you said this earlier a couple of months ago. Best available versus the biggest team need. And right now the Browns just went ahead and looked like they signed a tackle. And it started to get me thinking about a lot of different other things in terms of where those guys are moving on the board. A lot of defensive players went to the combine. They show what they can do, whether that's Sonny Styles, whether that's Caleb Downs, whether that's some of these guys, Bailey, Ruben Bain, they got names at the top of the board. Where are you at in terms of what your philosophy is on when you are a team picking at that high and you need a bunch of stuff? What's your philosophy on best available versus biggest team need?
So for context, I'm going to be Andrew Berry in the barbershop today because we're talking about the Cleveland Browns. And what I'm looking at is I got to evaluate my roster. Where are we elite from a talent standpoint? Where do we have major deficiencies? And those players in the middle who are good enough in the short term to help us be successful. Like, I feel like as a GM, you got to be honest with yourself about what you have in the building. Now, once you decide that, contractually, where are we at? Is this a guy that's coming up for contract that we don't love, that we don't want to pay, a la Houston? Houston decided that was somebody that had been in their program, that he had underperformed to their expectations. They felt like giving him $20+ million a year on extension was something they weren't willing to do. So they moved on from him, got a 5th-round pick in return. So those are the kind of decisions of Andrew Berry I'm making right now as I look at my roster.
You take a look at it, and you said, obviously, he's a guy. They gave him a little bit of an extension as well. They got 6 or 7 guys that they need to make a decision on. He can play guard. He can play his own tackle as well. And it's funny because one man's trash is another man's treasure. It looks like Andrew Berry goes and makes the evaluation of, okay, well, this guy is better than what we have in the building. Can we get something out of him? And do you think that's an evaluation they make based on, the coach? The coach comes in and he's talking to him. Hey, we're thinking about this guy. He's available, making a move. What do you think the evaluation is? And can you get what he needs to get out of him in his scheme and being top monkey?
And we also need bodies. I mean, I'm putting myself in Andrew Berry's shoes as we sit here March 3rd, 2026. If I had been the GM of the Browns during the entire tenure of Andrew Berry, we're never in this position where we don't have a under contract offensive lineman like that. As you would say, that's diabolical work for a GM to allow the roster to get in that position. But what is his name? Titus Howard, I think is his name.
Titus Howard, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The one thing he does give you is a big body with a lot of experience and maybe a change of scenery. They showed him some love with the compensation package. Gets him motivated to go back and really work at becoming the player Houston thought he could be initially. So I don't think that's a bad move, depending on what the cap situation looks like. But for a team with nothing on the O-line, I think it was necessary. And I would imagine you'll see a couple more moves like this, in between now and the start of next season for the Cleveland Browns.
Let's take a look at the big board. And when we talk about, the question is, what's the biggest need for the Cleveland Browns in terms of who's on the big board? Now, this is just one person's big board. This is according to PFF right now. You let me know if you have a difference in this and you see anybody that's egregious on the top 10. Right now, they got Fernando Mendoza at number 1. Ruben Bain, I like Ruben Bain a lot. I think he's versatile. I think he could play inside and outside. I like his build. The only thing is, how long is his arms as a pass rusher? Caleb Downs, we're going to talk about this. Mike Mayock is not that high on Caleb Downs. We'll get into that as well. Jeremiah Love, the first running back on the board. And then the combine wonder himself, Sonny Styles at number 5. I think he ran fast, he jumped high, he did all those things. Let's continue to go. David Bailey, the pass rusher, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Arvell Reese is the guy they have number 7 on their board. Francis Mauigoa is the top-rated tackle on the board. He looks like he's a little bit longer than they once thought. And he's a guy who thinks that he could either be a guard or a tackle. And they'll take at number 9, and then Makai Lemon at number 10. Out of this, when you take a look at these 2 big boards, or the number 1 through 10, do you have a problem with any of these guys on the board in terms of having it in the top 10?
I do. Mendoza's egregious. Mendoza's not close to being the best overall player in this draft. He's the best quarterback, and of course, that's the most important position. But if you're ranking this just based on ability, production, projection, then there's no way Mendoza's number 1. And I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I really think he's a more athletic version of Jared Goff. And here's what I mean by that. Goff can function and help you win when things around him are as they should be. And he's got either Sean McVay designing the offense or Ben Johnson type designing the offense. He can operate in those situations. What you've seen is once Ben Johnson left Detroit and he had to try and do more with less, injuries across the board for Detroit, his deficiencies started to expose themselves. So I think Mendoza's a good quarterback. I have the same grade on Mendoza I had on Shedeur Sanders, late first, early second. So for someone to have him as the number 1 overall prospect, I think that's egregious.
Okay, let's look at you look at 6 through 10 right here. David Bailey, Arvell Reese, Francis Mauigoa, Carnell Tate, and Makai Lemon. When you look at Mauigoa, some people have him as a guard, some people have him as a tackle. Do you have a problem if you're drafting a guy that high and you think he may transition better to another position? Is that an issue for you if you're looking at drafting a guy in the top 10?
Well, Sweet Feet Francis, as I call him.
Okay.
Sweet Feet Francis. He's probably got the best feet on an offensive lineman I've seen in a long time. I mean, his ability to pick him up and put him down, at that position is really elite. I don't think he brings a lot of lower body strength to the position, but he does play with maniacal effort, and I do think he projects to be a really good NFL player. But when I look at it, I don't get caught up in how tall they are, how long their arms are. I look at it, what does he look like his highest ceiling is going to be in the NFL? And to me, it's a guard. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think if you're drafting him to be an elite tackle in this league, when you think about the Will Andersons and the Myles Garretts and the Bosa's and these guys that are coming off the edge, I don't really like that matchup moving forward. So I like Sweet Feet. I think he's really talented, but I'll project him as a guard. But him being in your top 10 overall players, I don't really have any pushback with that. I've got another guy. I'm going to have you guys take it 6, but we'll get to that later. I think Carnell Tate at 9 is egregious. I think Carnell Tate is a good wide receiver. I don't think he's elite in any area. I think he's a guy, if you put him on an established team that's looking just to add one piece, he can be productive. If you put him somewhere, he's got to be the number 1, and he's going to get Patrick Surtain and all those guys every week. I think he's going to struggle in those situations.
Wow. Now, that we got to get to that. Let's go ahead and let's start with this. I want to throw this out there because when you take a look at it, Todd McShay had some things to say in terms of Mendoza and Ty Simpson, and we want to get in there. And he talks about the gap between Simpson and Mendoza. Now I'm gonna have you take a listen to it, but you kind of alluded to something. You said him and being the number 1 on the board is egregious. Let's see what Todd McShay had to say, because I think he has some of the same things that you kind of looking at in terms of where he has as Mendoza and Simpson.
Are you on the second quarterback? Where are you on
Ty
that?
Simpson? Ty Simpson all day long.
He was spinning really nicely. I thought he looked the part, Todd, but the question is where? Where do you have him landed? What do you think?
I'm in the camp that the gap between he and Mendoza is not nearly as big as the public seems to think.
Okay.
Although there is, I understand it. And it's much greater between Simpson and QB3. Specifically, if you were kind of dropped into this as an NFL coach, right? And you were handed the first 8 or even 9 tapes for both Mendoza and Simpson, I promise you Simpson's tape's better. It just is. Now, Simpson's 6'1". He's 211 pounds. He's got 15 starts. And his 1 year as a starter, he wasn't able to stay healthy throughout the year. So let's dig a little deeper into it. What happened from games about 10, 11 on? Offensive line, the protections were kind of figured out by Brent Venables in that first game, and it didn't get better as the season went on. They were copycat in terms of, all right, we figured out the tendencies, so we're going to get more pressure on Ty. Running game was 126th in the nation, I think it was, which is like, you can't even fathom that if you're an Alabama fan. Then you've got your star wide receiver, just disappears. Ryan Williams came into recruiting. It was him and Jeremiah Smith were like 1-1A, and Ryan Williams can't catch the ball. Confidence, he's gone. And so the hits start to pile up, and the injuries and the beating that he's taking, and gastritis, I think it is, down to 190 pounds by the time the Rose Bowl came along. So listen, they're all excuses, and it is what it is. But if you're looking for the best of Ty Simpson versus the best of Mendoza, I don't see it as a huge gap.
Listen, he said he's kind of saying some of the same things you've said a little bit. Where do you have the gap between Ty Simpson and Mendoza? Because we talked probably, I want to say 3 months into it. And the first 6-7 games, you talked about Mateer. You talked about Ty Simpson cooking, possibly being the first off the board. He kind of fell off a little bit, but is there a much bigger gap than people are perceiving here with Mendoza versus Simpson?
I get what Todd is saying. If you take Mendoza's top 5 games from last year and take Ty Simpson's top 5 games from last year, Ty Simpson has a higher ceiling. He makes more NFL-type throws, breaking routes, timing stuff. Where Ty Simpson pales to Mendoza is in mental and physical toughness. Mendoza has shown that when everything breaks down and he's got to take licks and sit back there and make throws, he'll do it. Ty Simpson's like Sam Darnold. That is my 100% evaluation of Ty Simpson. Sam Darnold was talented coming out of SC, but when it became chaotic, he couldn't handle the pressure. And Ty Simpson's the same quarterback right now. You notice Sam Darnold never figured it out to year 7. He had to fail multiple places till he finally figured out how to stay mentally composed and let his talent show through. I think Ty Simpson's the same kind of prospect. So I can see the upside that McShay sees, but whoever drafts Ty Simpson, unless it's a Jordan Love situation where he gets to sit and be unbothered for 2-3 years, I don't think whoever drafts him will see the best version of Ty Simpson. I think if you take him in the first round and you expect him to come and play, he won't get to his second contract with that team. He may figure it out later, but not with that team. Mendoza's a mentally and physically tough kid. You just don't see a lot of the NFL-type throws on the screen. I mean, they ran the ball at an elite level at Indiana. A lot of his throws are one-on-one throws outside. Deep balls, back shoulder throws, and everything else almost is RPO. So you don't see him standing in the pocket making a bunch of NFL-caliber throws, and the film is so drastically different from the 2 years at Cal than it is the 1 year at Indiana. So there are some questions about Mendoza's ceiling, but I think his floor is a lot higher than Ty Simpson.
You know what the crazy part about it is? Like, he got that thing. I said it, when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, he got that thing where he just be making people believe. Like, Ty Simpson got that. Mendoza got that thing where it's like, look, when he get on the field, they got some solid players, not no superstars, but when he get out there against Ohio State or Miami, he make people believe like it's gonna get done. Like, it may not look great, but it's gonna get done. Bush,
when you watched Indiana, you never thought they were gonna lose because of Mendoza playing bad. When you watched Alabama, you were always worried that, boy, the bad version of Ty Simpson, Alabama ain't got a shot.
You know what? That's a very good point. That is a super point. Like, you put that well, because when I would watch against Indiana, it was like when he had them RPOs down so tough, like it was damned if you do, damned if you do. He was reading it so well that if you took three or 4 steps to the left, 2 inches, he was going to hit who he needed to hit. And then he was with Surratt and Cooper, them back shoulder fades. I don't know if they was working on it got to third down, it's one-on-one coverage. We about to hit this back shoulder. And That was it. I just didn't see if you talked about progression, like Ty Simpson moving around, finding 1, 2, 3, 4, and guys moving around. I'm like, well, his offense was much more advanced. They asked him to do more, but that doggone Mendoza just always seemed to make the play when he needed that play to be made.
And you got to think now, for context, every quarterback under Kalen DeBoer in that system has looked phenomenal. Ty Simpson, the first one in a long time now that misses a lot of layups, looks frazzled, looks like the situation might be too big for him. And I think that's just a maturity thing, and he'll eventually, hopefully for him, grow out of that. But I'm not using a first-round asset on a guy that I don't think is close to being ready to lead an NFL football team. So I get McShay because the high of Ty Simpson is really good. Now, you go watch that Missouri-Alabama game. I mean, Ty Simpson looks like the first pick in the draft. You go watch that Oklahoma-Alabama game. Never forget this. They benched him. Or was it Alabama-Indiana? It might have been Alabama-Indiana. Remember, they benched him.
Yeah, they said he was hurt, but then they had this monster who came in.
Everybody hurt, man.
I'm trying to give him a little out. I'm trying to give him some. But the dude he had coming in, I said, "Who is this 6'6" guy throwing the ball through a wall?" I was like,
and let me ask you a question. I think Alabama told Ty Simpson they were going in a different direction.
I do too.
Because if Alabama had the same messaging for Ty Simpson that Oregon had for Dante Moore, I guarantee you Ty Simpson's still at Alabama. Right. On a big NIL deal, knowing he needs more experience. His agent said, look, this is a very weak quarterback draft. The things you've done this year that are great are enough to make you probably the second quarterback drafted.
I agree. I completely agree. Really quickly, before we move on to some of these other positions, we've been hearing about Malik Willis. We've been hearing about Anthony Richardson. Where would you rank Ty Simpson if you were a team looking to make a move? Right, you can trade for and give a contract to Malik Willis. You can take a little lower 5th round pick or Anthony Richardson, or you can go and you can get Ty Simpson. Based on what those guys have done so far, upside, the above, which option do you think is a more feasible option for guys who you haven't seen? Because Ty Simpson only played how many starts? 15, somewhere in that. All these guys are a little up in the air. Where would you rank those as far as options at quarterback?
Well, I think Ty Simpson's a down the road guy. I think Anthony Richardson, I'm not even barking up that tree. First of all, he's injured all the time. Secondly, he never should have been drafted. You talk about a kid that should have went back to Florida. Anthony Richardson should have stayed in school. Now, he wasn't close to being ready to be an NFL starting quarterback. And the thing with him is I really don't know what he learned in Indy. Like Malik Willis, failed in Tennessee, and the next time we saw him, well, he had learned a lot under LaFleur and Jordan Love. And he looked like he's ready to lead the organization. So Malik will be my number one guy, but I'd only bring Malik in if I'm bringing him in to be my unquestioned starter. I'm not bringing him in to compete with Shador and Deshaun. Like, if I brought Malik in, I'd basically be saying I'm moving on from Deshaun and Shador. I think he deserves that based on what he's done, in some high-pressure situations, filling in for Jordan Love. Anthony Richardson, if I'm the Ravens, I could see bringing Anthony Richardson in and just seeing what we have in 2 years, understanding Lamar finally is, starting to experience some injury issues. All he's got to do is sit behind Lamar and learn, and hopefully 2 years from now, we feel like he's developed and grown into somebody. But I'm not looking at Anthony Richardson if I need a guy to play in 2026, at least not at quarterback. No, not at all. And Ty Simpson, the only way he succeeds in the NFL, in my opinion, is if he goes somewhere and he gets to sit. He's not ready to start week 1, 2026, in my opinion.
So listen, shout out to one thing Richardson can say. Shout out to his agent. He got him drafted 4th overall. He got generational money. If hopefully he saved his bag, because if he flames out.
Have you ever met Deshaun in person?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
Richardson's bigger.
Well, Anthony Richardson, he looks like a linebacker, man. Like,
but the first time you meet Deshaun Watson, you're like, damn, he's bigger than I thought.
Yeah, he's definitely a little bit longer than you think. Like, when you walk up on him, I'm like 6'4", 6'5". You're like, oh, okay, this is a quarterback.
Richardson's bigger than him. When you meet Richardson in person, I can understand. He's got a very affable personality. He's likable. He's going to go out there. He's going to jump out the gym on the vert. He's going to run faster than any quarterback you've seen. He's going to throw he's going to overthrow everything down the field, but he's going to throw it 75 yards. Like, I can see how Sirianni, coming from massaging Jalen Hurts' limited ability into success in Philly, would think he could do the same thing with Anthony Richardson. You got to remember, they had Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman. They were in a good old line. Like, they were in a position where he probably thought he could manipulate it around the young player. But I'm not a big Anthony Richardson fan. I recruited him since high school. He hadn't kind of licked better, in my opinion. But hopefully he goes somewhere and figures it out.
Hey, let's keep it pushing. Let's get to this. This is a good one. More important, the playmaking ability or the position. So this got me thinking. Traditionally, safety, linebacker, and guard, you can have them on your big board, but I'm thinking of the guys that went at those positions, and it's hard pressed to find guys that are going in at that higher level at those positions that are not premium positions. Got me to thinking a little bit. Mike Mayock talked about it and talked about what is the positions, guys that stood out a little bit, and what are the thought process if you're at 6 or in the top 5 and guys happen to be on the board and they're defensive players?
Noticing that, what if there's a draft where the best players are safeties, running backs, and interior linemen or tackles who might be kicked inside? Like, what happens if those are your best players and those are potentially the difference makers, and you've got a top 5, if not a top 10 pick? Do you fire in that direction or not? And I'm wondering what your 2 cents on the subject matter are.
I think it's pretty simple. If a kid's a dynamic player at any position, you take them, especially if it matches up with any type of need. But you look back. Are you not going to take Zach Martin at 6 or 8 or 10 or whenever he was taken, the big lineman out of Notre Dame because he was a guard? Are you not going to take Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson? Are you not going to take the safety from Baltimore, Hamilton, that went at 14? Are you not going to take the safety in the Chargers? If he's a difference maker, if he's dynamic, I think you have to take him. End of story.
The end of story. Is Sonny Styles that guy?
I'm a big fan. I'm happy you mentioned him because I didn't even write him down today. But I started watching him in 23 when he was a boundary safety and a dime. And he was this big, good-looking safety. And I'm trying to figure out what he's going to turn into. And what he turned into was this. In 24, they moved him to off-the-ball linebacker, and you could see spurts of being special. However, his instincts were tough because it was a brand-new position, off-the-ball linebacker. He wasn't coming downhill. He wasn't being heavy. That all changed this year. You saw a combination of an unbelievable set of physical traits combined with a guy that was getting used to playing a new position. I think he's a top 10 pick in any draft. I don't care if it's 2 or 5 or 8. He's really a good football player. Right?
Thoughts on, I guess, first of all, the thought on, are you taking guys that are playmakers? I love a good guard that's heavy-handed and is going to move people, men mover. I love a good guard in the run game, but you don't see that. I don't know if I could take him in the top 10. I don't know if that's the thing. I like a linebacker, but can I take a linebacker in the top 10 if he's not Brian Urlacher, or he better be Ray Lewis, right? Ray Lewis didn't go in the top 10, and safeties, obviously, we'll get to Caleb Downs in a minute. But what are your thoughts on position versus playmaker?
Well, we're in the barbershop. Everybody put the clippers down. Stop edging. Let me change how you look at the draft.
All right.
First thing you have to do as an organization, who are we now? Then you ask yourself, what do we want to be? Then when the draft comes around, what helps us get there? There are very few rosters like the Niners a couple years ago where you got all pros across on all 3 levels on defense and all 3 levels on offense. Most teams got some areas just because of the cap that aren't quite as elite from a talent standpoint as others. So if taking the guard from Penn State gives us the best offensive line in football, and we're going to rely on running the football down people's throats and use play action to create explosive plays, then you're not overdrafting him because of what it does for you. To the Sonny Styles thing, people that watch the film, I wasn't shocked at what he did at the combine. That's what it looks like. When you watch the game, he looks explosive. He looks like he has top end speed. He looks like he has great change of direction. He looks like he's a generational athlete that finally this year start playing with a level of physicality that he's going to need to be elite at that position. So I wasn't surprised. Like, he grew into that, and I thought that was a very good synopsis of his journey over the last 3 years by Mayock right there. So again, I when I was on UCS, I tell you guys best available. Here's what I mean by that. If we have a need and the best available player at our need, say we're picking 6 for the Browns, the best available player on our big board that fills that need, we have ranked as a 27th overall player. But we have our 2nd ranked player, 3rd ranked player, 8th and 9th ranked player on our big board available at 6. You can't pass on guys you got ranked that far ahead from a talent standpoint, regardless of it, because you want to be elite, so it's 22 guys out there. You know, if I put David Bailey on the other side of Myles Garrett or Desmond Bain on the other side of Myles Garrett, or I put Sonny Styles behind that D-line, like, we're good now. We're going to be great then. So, I mean, it's relative, but you got to go in with the idea, like, we got to have a board, and we got to believe in that board, and we got to trust it. And last thing about that, don't worry about the reaction of the fan base. Worry about the fit and what it did for your team week 1 of the upcoming season.
Hey, I can agree with that. Let me just tell you this, because I didn't know who the heck Carson Schlesinger was. I ain't gonna lie. And then I went
Harold Fanning.
I knew a fan. He went to my high school, so I was beating the drum on Harold Fanning.
Like, people act like they're surprised that he's an elite pass catcher. I was like, do y'all not watch Maction? Man, that boy caught 12 balls a game at Bowling Green.
In the bowl game, anytime the quarterback is spoon feeding the guy, and it ain't short dink and dunk, it's vertical, it's post corners. They was getting him involved. I said, okay, yeah, he gonna be. And by the way, I always watch when I'm watching MAC guys or guys that are trying to at a lower level. I want to see what you do against the big boys. You go watch the Penn State game, watch Texas A&M.
He's still eating.
He's still eating.
I never understood why people didn't understand the level of talent that he was and what he was capable of as a player. So it's understanding that the jerseys represent a certain amount of the evaluation, but the production to me is number one. Then it's the traits. Then it's the person. Because a guy could be productive and have traits and be a dirtbag, and he going to be bad for your organization. So, like, all of those things come into play. But Sonny Styles, I wasn't surprised at all. The guy I'm going to take at 6 is going to shock you, though. I trust you.
I was going to preface that. I ain't going to, listen, let me just give you the prediction for Styles. Does he go higher than does he go higher than 6? Does he go before the Browns is on the board?
And I think a lot, Tennessee needs defense. So it comes down to where do they have Styles as compared to Bain, Bailey, Arvell Reese, and some of those guys. Like, is he a higher prospect on their big board than those other guys? You know, because they've got the big D tackle down there that's really good. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Simmons, right? Simmons.
Yeah, Simmons.
Yeah,
yep. He killed us. Destroyed us.
I mean, they got guys. So I think it depends on the Jets at 2. I think the Jets are the wild card in the top 5.
Let me throw you this, and before we get to this next guy, does Arvell Reese scare you a bit?
Good player, not great prospect to me.
Because he plays sort of like a stand-up type position, but they do have him off ball. And I always get scared with guys who are in that position because I like you to either be a rusher or I want you to be a traditional, you can do all the things I want an outside linebacker to do, drops, coverage, sideline to sideline. It just seems that he's in between. And when I'm looking at his production in terms of sacks, a go-to move, if I look at Ruben Bain, I know what I'm getting from him. He's got motor, he can push, pull, he's heavy-handed, he can bend. But when Arvell Reese, I know it says he ran a 4.4, but necessarily do you see 4.4 on the field?
I don't. I'm not as high on Arvell Reese as a lot of other people. I think when I'm drafting an edge, I feel like you got to be great at something. Like you said, I know what I'm getting in Ruben Bain. To me, David Bailey's college film looks a lot like Will Anderson. Yep. Go back and watch Will Anderson's film at Alabama.
No gloves.
I don't think Arvell's the same prospect as those other 2 guys, but I could get why somebody thinks he's a great fit for their system because he's kind of one of those guys that's good at everything. You're never going to draft Arvell Reese and they say he's a bust, but you might not ever have like a multi-year All-Pro either. And so when I'm drafting top 5, man, I want to go for greatness. Greatness based on fact, though, not greatness based on just strictly projection.
Let's get to this. This is a very good segue until you talk about greatness and projection and whatever the case may be. Let's get to this thing about Caleb Downs. Mike Mayock says some fun, interesting things. Let's see if you agree with him.
As high as a lot of people in the safety from Ohio State either. That's one where I go, I don't see him, Caleb Downs, I love him as a player, but I don't see him as a dynamic difference maker. So I don't see him as a top 10 pick. Now, that's just my own evaluation. I did 2 years of his tape. Sure.
Caleb Downs, you don't think he's a top 10? What did you see on his film, on his tape that you still need to see a little bit more?
No, it's not even that, Rich. And the kid, don't get me wrong.
I know.
He is a hell of a football player.
Right.
Okay. He's a first-round safety. Gotcha. I'm in. I think he's smart. I think he's instinctive. I think he's tough. He tackles. He can play in the box. He can play it free. So he does all these things. I don't see it as many dynamic plays on the ball as you'd like to see from a top 10 safety. And that might be because that Ohio State defense is so freaking gifted.
Right.
So I could very well be wrong here, but I have done a lot of work on him on this whole defense because they're so damn good, so talented. And I'm pounding that. I think he's a first-round pick. I just don't think in the top 10 at safety, if you're not turning the ball over or have the potential to get it turned over more often, I'm not sure you go there.
You know what? I ain't gonna lie. I talked to Tyvis, Ohio State safety. My guy Mike Dawson's Ohio State. I see Mike Dawson take the ball away against the U. I'm like, when they need to play, you got to go get it. I like Caleb Downs. Listen, I like Malcolm Jenkins. They got a lot of great safeties. Sean Springs, one of the guys over there. Eric Berry's a good corner. Antoine Winfield was a monster. Your thoughts on Caleb Downs as a top 10 safety, and what do you have to do as a safety to be known as one of them dudes? Because Sean Taylor is one of them dudes. Your thoughts on what Caleb Downs' ceiling is, and do you think he actually goes in the top 10?
I don't know if he goes in the top 10 just because the NFL talks themselves out of smart decisions all the time. Caleb Downs is as good as all those guys you just mentioned. All Caleb Downs does is make your defense better. As Mayock said, he can play in the box. He could be the apex guy. He could play free. He can play center field. He's got great ball skills, great change of direction, instinctual tackles in space. The one thing nobody talks about with Caleb Downs, he makes your special teams better because he's a hell of a punt returner too. So he's not just limited to just being the safety. Like, hell, he's one of the best punt returners I've seen. So if I'm in a position where I can take a luxury pick, Caleb Downs goes in the top 10. Like, if the Chiefs were who they should be, and they didn't need like dynamic playmakers on offense and the retool O-line. And Caleb Downs, absolutely. Like, this is the kind of player that ends up at Philly or somewhere because people talk themselves out of him. And he goes, he's in the Rookie of the Year conversation. And he goes to multiple Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
Don't talk yourself out of a kid that's been good at Alabama, at Ohio State. But when have you ever seen Caleb Downs play bad?
Tyvis said something.
That's the question I'd have asked Mayock. When have you ever seen Caleb Downs play bad?
Tyvis said this. He said, when people say he ain't taking, he don't have enough takeaways away or taking the ball away. And Tyvis said that's because he neutralizes the play before it even starts. he done diagnosed it already. You can't even go over there. So
you're talking about a team that has probably 2 top 5 picks in their front 7. In Styles and RVL. How many games did the Buckeyes give up over 250 yards passing?
0.
The Big Ten was terrible at quarterback across the conference. So it wasn't like guys were in there throwing the ball and Caleb just not making plays. Like, I think sometimes you got to put context on certain aspects of production.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wasn't putting a lot of – show me the picks he dropped or the plays that were made against him.
Right. Like, to me, it looked like ain't nobody even going over that way. Like, it's just like, he's, and by the way, he was a beast. He was a beast at Alabama. Now they did bring it up. They did bring up the fact that I don't know if this is
some ACL issue or something.
Yeah. The ACL, like it's a degenerative type thing. I don't know.
Has he missed any games?
Nah, we ain't seen that. I think that's the Bull and the Cincinnati Bengals trying to get him to drop. Listen,
we making up stuff.
Well, yeah, right. At this point, with that being said, you never know what G. Bush might show on radio, television, internet, but you want the fresh cut on sports. I keep the Clippers. Have a great rest of your evening. Go watch the Cavs, and as always, go Browns.